We want to kick off, though, with workforce. I know workforce is an issue for probably every one of you in the room. Sometime this year, you've probably dealt with employees that you have furloughed or that you have let go or that you've tried to get back, or new people you're trying to hire to go back into production so you can meet the demands of today. So all of those are at the forefront. As well as markets, and we'll talk about that later in the day, but we want to kick off with workforce. We've been talking over the last several months with the Appalachian Regional Commission. You're probably familiar with that organization. It's a government entity that works specifically in our region. When I look at the ARC map, it's almost identical to the Appalachian map. They go a little bit further into the south than we do, but our maps overlap in an amazing way. And so we've been working with David Hughes, and David's going to kick us off this morning with some information about ARC. But we're developing a partnership with them to work on these workforce issues as well as markets, but to help you train, help you hire, help you retain, and help you reach potential employees and existing employees in the region. So David is with us this morning. David is the program manager of workforce investment for the Appalachian Regional Commission. He works directly with the 13 member organizations and the governors, as well as their state alternatives and alternates, and program managers, and a network of local development districts to continue creating economic opportunities throughout the Appalachian region. Join me in welcoming David Hughes. David?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us here, and thank you, Tom. Like Jay and Tom, we're very happy that you're able to pull this off. I know back in July it didn't look quite so promising, but Tom Inman never wavered at Flint and did not even flinch. And I decided that your favorite ride at the amusement park when you were a kid must have been the roller coaster, because you've done that well. You've ridden it well this summer, and even going back to the spring. I'm very happy to be here on behalf of the Appalachian Regional Commission and representing Federal Co-Chairman Tim Thomas. He wanted me to express his regrets for not being able to be here in person. I'll tell you a little bit why he's not in just a moment, but I think given the opportunity, I think he will eventually get to meet you all face to face, and he's very interested in doing that. He's very interested in the growth and success of your businesses and the industry as a whole. So I look forward to getting him connected with you in the very near future. We do understand the vital importance of the industry. We understand how beneficial it is to Appalachia, and we're very devoted to continuing this new partnership that we've developed with AHMI over the last few months, and looking forward to sustaining that in an enduring way well into the future. So ARC Appalachian Regional Commission uses a regional commission in our name, and that's one of the ways that we're defined by the 420 counties of Appalachia that we serve. They spread across all of West Virginia and parts of 12 other states. We're also defined in how we're organized, and that is as a federal-state partnership. So that means we're a true partnership between the federal government and the 13 states. Our federal co-chairman, Tim Thomas, is appointed by the president, and he's confirmed by the Senate. Each year, then, the governors of each state get together and choose one of their own to preside as the state's co-chair. And this year, that honor went to Ohio Governor Mike DeWine. And going back to Governor DeWine's days in Congress, he has been a very true friend to Appalachia, and this has been a very successful year for us under the leadership of Tim Thomas and Mike DeWine. ARC investments are designed to grow the economy of our 420 county region. So if you're like me, you automatically ask when you hear about something for the first time, well, how does that work anyway? Well, it's really pretty simple. We take an appropriation from Congress every year, and we invest in programs that have been vetted by our partners in the 13 states. And now, since every investor expects a return, our return on investment occurs when a business or an underserved household is connected to new infrastructure like water and wastewater or broadband or a highway. It occurs when an employer creates a new job. It we receive return when an incumbent worker is trained for a new manufacturing line that you may be putting in your business. We see return when a student receives a new credential or a new degree program. So those are just some of the many ways that we see return on the investments that we make on your behalf. So since everything has a starting point, of course, this is no different. We begin with a simple grant application, which is bottoms up in its approach. ARC, along with our partners, set dates every year when applications are due. And once they're received, they're then reviewed by subject matter experts in our state capitals. And then they're forwarded on to the commission staff in Washington. Once they're blessed, once they receive the blessing of their governor, we take a look at them and review them again. And then the federal co-chairman, Tim Thomas, takes a look at it and decides if that's something that we want to make an investment in. In some instances, the proposals are also reviewed by teams from other federal agency partners in Washington. And that is where Tim Thomas is today, announcing the winners of one of those competitions up in Pennsylvania with Secretary of Labor Scalia. So that's why he couldn't be here today. He was called away to announce a program that's actually does move workforce development forward in the region. So how do we decide what kinds of activities to invest in? Well, the first thing we do is we go out into the region and we listen to industry, and we listen to past and future grantees of ours. We listen to elected leaders, to education leaders, to lenders and to borrowers of capital, which is essential for growing businesses. We do, and other stakeholders, listen to other stakeholders and investors as well at the time. So we do that every 5 years, and we were actually planning to do that this year until the pandemic hit. So the way where it stands now, we plan to resume this as conditions permit. Hopefully we'll get back into that cycle next year, and then once again we'll have a set of guidelines to help us guide where our investments should go. Then that strategic planning process is something that we used, last completed in 2015. The goals we heard about then included business development, workforce development, infrastructure, and leadership. And since I'm with the business development side, I know most about that. That includes support for manufacturers, includes support for all existing industry. We're very focused on entrepreneurship and new business creation, and also improving access to capital for businesses in the region, which is, as I said, is very essential to the growth of businesses and industry. Now, fifth goal is a long-standing goal of ours, and that is natural resource development. This has been something that's been around since the mid-'60s when we were created, and it leads us to invest in the strategic use of the region's abundant natural resources, which you all are directly involved in. And just to show you that these 5 goals that we have now don't exist in a silo, I want to tell you how a couple of them are connected. When we were first created in 1965, we needed a way to get those resources to markets. And the design of the original interstate highway system was simply not going to be up to the task of getting the goods to trading centers and to ports. So we invested heavily in the build out of what is known as the Appalachian Development Highway System, which is a 3,000-mile network of highways and connections meant to supplement the federal interstate highway system. And today, I'm happy to state that over 90% of those highways are either open for traffic or are under construction at this very time. And many of you traveled across some of those corridors, as I did, as you made your way to Stonewall Resort. So, and I was really happy to see the fall color, the intense color at one of those passes over in Western Maryland on my way over here from Washington, which made me just, reminded me of that we really are in the fall season, even though the summer's been very much of a blur to many of us. Maybe things will return to normalcy here, and I hope that's the intensity of that little glimpse of fall color is a good sign of that. Sometimes, well, let me go back, if I can shift back to natural resources for just a second. Some of the more noteworthy investments that we've made, I'd like to talk about, just mention them for you. We've invested with the West Virginia Department of Commerce and Division of Forestry on an inventory of standing timber in West Virginia's state forests. Another program we're invested in, also in West Virginia, is being led by Joe McNeil and West Virginia University to certify yellow poplar for use in the manufacture of cross-laminated timber panels. Very excited about that. Looking forward to the results from that. One of the things I've had a lot of fun working with also is the West Virginia Forest Products Cooperative. That's based down in Princeton at the U.S. Forest Service facility there. And we've helped them purchase a lot of advanced equipment, and they use that, or their members use that. It's shared equipment, and it's shared among the members, and who also receive training and market assistance, from the co-op. So those three projects are all in West Virginia, and we look forward to getting much more invested into the types of things that are very close to your businesses. Sometimes when things happen, they're often beyond our control, but the region is so severely impacted by events that major intervention is called for by Congress and the administration. That is exactly what happened around 2012 when markets for all types of coal went into a very steep decline. I know that you're all familiar with how and when that happened. And just then, soon after, as the impact of that was being felt, we began to realize that there was a very growing health crisis relating to the excessive prescription and use of opioids. In both of those instances, we set up grant competitions to seek proposals directly from organizations working in the areas that are affected by the crisis. And these are ongoing programs now. In these competitions, we look for innovative and sustainable ideas that will transform the areas affected by the crisis, each crisis. And in the case of the grants for the coal impacted regions, we will invest up to $1.5 million per project for programs that will help to transform that region and create sustaining economic growth. In the case of the substance use disorder projects, we will invest up to $500,000 per award. The program for the coal impacted communities is called our POWER program, easy to remember. And the program to combat substance use disorder is called INSPIRE. I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. That's a brand new program. But first, the next open competition for programs for the coal impacted regions is expected to occur soon after the new year begins, or if we receive our final appropriation from Congress sooner. And then the competition for substance use disorder projects is actually open right now as I speak. It opened last month, and it runs through the middle of November. So we got just about 6 weeks left to go in that competition. And then if you're interested in knowing more about those, I'm very happy to mention that we have a brand new website that just launched a couple of weeks ago. It's simply www.arc.gov, very easy to remember. And I would encourage you to take a look at that. We're very excited about it. It's been received very well. And it's very easy to find more information about those programs, as well as all the rest of our investments and the many programs that we offer. Too many to go into here. One of the reasons I do want to mention these programs, especially, is that very often participation by private employers is essential to making them work. So I want you to know about them. If you hear about them or hear about an opportunity to participate in them, I want you to know what it is, and I very much encourage you to take advantage of that. It's a little bit late, probably in the game for both of these competitions. The POWER program announcements will actually come probably next month. So hopefully you'll be able to read about those investments. The INSPIRE, the substance use disorder program awards will be announced sometime after that. I'm not sure when that announcement is planned, probably sometime in 2021. But I would encourage you to try to take advantage of any opportunity you have to participate in those. If you want more information, if you want a specific question answered, you can email us at ARC. Both of those programs have their own email addresses. The substance use disorder program is simply sud@arc.gov. And the POWER program for coal impacted regions is simply power@arc.gov. So you can find out more about them this way. One more thing, this is a good time to mention the local development districts that Tom mentioned briefly. Those are multi-county agencies that we work with. They're kind of our third leg. They're our feet on the ground in the local regions. They're multi-county agencies that are represented by, run by board of directors composed of elected officials and nonprofit leaders and other community development leaders. They receive some funding from ARC to enable them to help you access ARC programs and activities. And sometimes they're called councils of government. They're called different names in different states, but councils of government, planning and development commissions. Sometimes in Kentucky, they're known as area development districts. Sometimes, simply development districts, as in the case of Tennessee. One of the things that I want to talk about in a few minutes is the needs of your businesses in the area of workforce, since we're talking a lot about workforce today. Creating a ready workforce is one of the 5 primary goals, as I mentioned, of ARC's strategic plan. And it's a key factor in the growth of Appalachian businesses. From your industry and others, the shortage of qualified workers is an enduring concern and one that we've heard again and again. Last year, ARC invested over $38 million in projects promoting education and workforce development throughout the region, including projects that built new facilities and started new courses of study and credentialing programs that meet industry needs. One of the critical needs we see are training programs located in the same areas as the jobs graduates would then be qualified to take. This model creates a pipeline of local, well-trained and motivated workers. And this brings us back to another key factor in a ready workforce, and that's the issue of substance abuse. It's an epidemic that has disproportionately impacted the Appalachian region. Substance abuse is often a manifestation of hopelessness caused by economic distress, and often the areas where the problem is most serious overlap with areas where the economy needs the most help. But the causation can go the other way as well. Often we found that economic growth is stunted by the lack of a ready workforce, impacted by a local substance abuse issue. The people affected with substance use disorder are our family members, our friends, and our neighbors. And they can be an asset to our communities and our businesses if they commit to recovery and acquire the skills and capabilities necessary to succeed in the workforce. To that end, ARC's co-chairman Thomas is very proud of the new pilot program that we just launched, and I just mentioned, the Inspire program. It's an initiative with a $10 million competitive grant program aimed at filling the gaps in the community-based recovery ecosystem. When a person completes their initial treatment for a substance use disorder, they then face a labyrinth of interconnected legal, medical, and other obligations that can be difficult to navigate successfully, especially while trying to get back to work. Key investments to make this path more direct and manageable, and including workforce training and reentry opportunities, will not only help provide communities with more trained workers, but studies have shown that a good, stable job plays a significant role in sustained recovery. Inspire is about smoothing the transition from recovery to work, making potential liabilities into assets, and bringing communities together around innovative solutions that build our economies while saving lives. The applications we expect to receive soon in response to this opportunity can be anything from a recovery counseling program to a workforce training program targeted at those in recovery, or a program aimed at eliminating the stigma associated with workers who are recovering from a substance use disorder. This goes hand in hand with our ready workforce goals, because trained workers who are free of substance abuse issues are an asset to ARC, and they are an asset to you. I want to end with those comments on substance abuse and workforce development, and just say that we're looking forward to hearing from my friends in the community college system that are coming up next. Jen Worth, I believe, is next, and she is a longtime colleague and dear friend, and who is the Vice President for Workforce Development at the American Association of Community Colleges. She's going to say hello to you, and she's going to be online throughout the discussion and ready to respond to questions you might have. Next, we're going to have Dr. Johnny Moore, who I'm very happy made the journey from Pierpont Community College this morning. He's going to be up next after Jen, and he is said the president up at Pierpont, and they're known across the land for their work in advanced manufacturing and aerospace, and he's very, very interested in helping to take away from this event today ways that he can, and Pierpont can help you folks grow your business. And then we also have Scott Regal from another community college just down the road a bit in Covington, Virginia, Dabney Lancaster Community College. Scott Regal is head of the forestry department there, which is one of the few forestry programs at community college level that I'm aware of. And we're very happy that he's been able to put together a video, and will be able to join us virtually. And then I hope to the reason that I'm really here is to listen to you all. So I'd like very much to hear from you. We need to better understand your issues as they face you in the area of workforce, and in substance use disorder, I know is a big part of that. And also we're very excited to hear about new markets for hardwoods, and to hear from those speakers later in the program. So we're looking forward to a great morning. Thank you again very much for having us here. We're looking forward to a very long, sustained relationship with you.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks to David Hughes and to the AHMI chairman for the opportunity to speak today. I'm Jen Worth. I'm the Senior Vice President for Workforce and Economic Development at the American Association of Community Colleges. And that's a lot of words, but if you don't know what that means, it's essentially the membership organization for all the community colleges across the country. I've been there for a little over 13 years now. I've worked with ARC for many of those years, so I care deeply about the economic development that happens in Appalachia. My role, like David's, as he just said, is really to listen and to help ARC think about ideas that are scalable, not just within your states or region, but within the entire country. So I was at the White House last week, and I'm coming to you live from my living room today, but it doesn't really matter who's in charge. The administration changes constantly, but AACC, the American Association of Community Colleges, is always trying to make sure that we are paying attention to what industry wants. And your industry sector is quite interesting to me and ARC right now. I would say that post-COVID, the first programs back to community colleges are all the ones that have the applied skills, career and technical education. So people come to community colleges because they're affordable, they're flexible, they're everywhere. I'm thankful to see a couple of the community colleges in the room today. But as part of this coming back, we realize that the students need that moment of connectivity. They need to be able to do applied teaching and learning. They can't just do it on the computer screens like we've all been functioning of late. You can't teach electrical linemen, what it feels like to be 40 feet in the air, swinging in a harness while they're connecting live voltage. You can't do that with goggles. You have to do that in a real classroom. So we have said, first and foremost, those kinds of programs need to come back to community colleges, and they should be prioritized. And we talk a lot right now at AACC about the perishability of skills. If you learn a skill like welding, you're going to be able to use that. You might weld on different materials, you might use a different piece of equipment, but functionally, you still know how to weld. So let's presume that skill set is like that of a potato. It doesn't go bad for, super fast. But if you have something like an IT certification, that's going to be highly perishable. It's a little bit more like a strawberry. It's going to go bad faster because just the industry changes so quickly. So at community colleges, we are truly trying to make sure that we keep pace with the vast array of skill sets that are going to be relevant to the employers that are in the room and all across the country. last week, we were talking with the companies, the likes of Lockheed Martin, IBM, you know, you name it, the big global companies, they don't particularly care where they get their talent from. So we have to make sure that the students that we are preparing are able to compete with those that are in Bangladesh and Australia. You know, we have to make sure that our students are truly going to be relevant, not just for their local labor markets, but they're going to make America fully optimized and competitive. And I would argue that in an economic development dialogue that you all are about to have today and over the next several hours, if every single American isn't fully utilized to their utmost, then we're not creating a talent pool in this country that is truly relevant and has the ability to be dominant. So if we want to maintain that dominance, if we want to be relevant on a global scale, we have to make sure that we are listening to the company's needs and making sure that we're using common language. We got to stop thinking about academics and just doing what we want to do as it relates to theory-based teaching. It really needs to be what's going to be applied, what's going to be consistently utilized, and what will people need in the coming days and years. So post-COVID, as everyone likes to say, it's just a pleasure to be with you all today. I am sorry that I'm not there in person. My husband wouldn't let me out of the house. He's a firefighter and goes in every couple of days. And he said, you have to watch the children. I got to go to work. So that's the only reason I'm not with you all. But I truly am grateful to be with you. I look forward to listening and trying to help ARC think about what makes sense for them in a scalable way across the country. And to the gentleman in the jacket with the, it's sort of like a burgundy with a tan check. By far, that is my favorite. I'm getting that for my husband next. I can only see all of the back of your heads. You look lovely, and it's a pleasure to be with you today. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate that. And that is Kerry Moon. We'll have him forward that his shopping list to you later today. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next is Dr. Johnny Moore. And David made reference to Dr. Moore. He is currently the president of Pierpont Community College right here in Fairmont, West Virginia. So we've got a broad mix of folks that are here. Dr. Moore is here with us to talk a little bit about information about the college and also some workforce training they do there. And then Dr. Moore will come back up at the end and facilitate a discussion with us as well. So, Dr. Moore.
Good morning, everyone. And notice I'm leaving my mask on for a while. Now I'll take it off, so I know it's on Zoom, so it's all about the branding. So, but no, thank you all. On behalf of the entire college family at Pierpont, I want to welcome you all to North Central West Virginia and the Pierpont Community and Technical College. First, I want to thank Mr. Inman as well as David for inviting me to be a part of this discussion, because I'm very curious about Heartwood. I want to talk about this a little bit later on, but my impression of Heartwood was, and I know you guys are going to laugh at me, but it's like it's a bad thing to cut trees down. I grew all my life that was in my mindset. And so I'm very interested in hearing and learning a lot more about Heartwood and the beauty that it presents to all of us in terms of some of the benefits. For the next 5 minutes or so, what I would like to do is to brag about my institution. And it's kind of interesting. They said, David told me, you're getting an opportunity to talk about my institution. Never give a president 5 minutes to talk about his institutions because they're going to take advantage of that. But no, in all seriousness, I'm going to talk a little bit about Pierpont. And Pierpont, this is my 5th year serving as president, and Pierpont is one of 9 community colleges within the state of the great state of West Virginia. And our mission is very simple. In fact, we went through a process this semester prior to COVID of revisiting our mission and revisiting our vision. And so our mission is very, very simple, which ties into what we're going to be talking about today. It says to provide accessible, responsive, comprehensive education that works. A lot of times you go to schools, you have these huge mission statements, and it's a lot of words, but people ask the question, what does it mean? So our mission statement is to provide accessible, responsive, comprehensive education that works. We serve at Pierpont, we serve approximately 5,000 students. We serve 13 different counties in North Central West Virginia, north as Monongalia County and Morgantown, south as Flatwoods is about 15, 20 minutes from here. We have about 5 different campuses that we serve, and we offer over 40 to 50 programs, associate degrees, as well as certificates, micro-credentials, because we're interested in making sure that we provide opportunities for people to go to work or transfer on to a 4-year institution. Some of the top programs that we have at Pierpont includes oil and gas. We're big on oil and gas, this part of the country. Also our health fields, health, think about COVID, what we're going through now. Health is very, very critical. IT, aviation program. In fact, last year we were recognized by the White House Economic Council providing innovative programs to reskill, doing our part to reskill folks within the great state of West Virginia, and ultimately helping to reskill folks throughout the country. But those are some of the major programs we have. And some of the highlights, our culinary arts program is ranked in top 20. I know it says top 20, what is he talking about? Well, as Jen was on just a few minutes ago, there are about over 1,100 community colleges. So our local community college have programs that are ranked in the top 20. Our culinary arts program is ranked 16th in the country. Our vet tech program is ranked in the top 20. So, and we routinely provide opportunities for students to go directly into the workforce. We have 100% job placement rates in a variety of our programs. There are waiting lists for people to get in some of our programs. So I'm excited to hear a little bit more about Heartwork. Now, we do not have a forestry program, but that's not to say that we cannot create a program, because that's the beauty and the luxury of comprehensive community colleges, because we have like 5 major things that we try and do in comprehensive community college. One, not necessarily in an order, is that we want to provide students like myself who is not quite ready to go off to the university. So we provide students the foundation work they need to then transfer on to the university. So we do that. Another component of what we do in comprehensive community colleges is we provide students with direct access to jobs. As I've mentioned before, we have 100% job placement rates in a variety of our programs. Also, we have continuing ed professional, continuing ed and enhancement of folks. We also provide customized training. All of those things is what make up a comprehensive nature of a community college. And one of the things that I'm very, very proud of, because if you think about right now, across the country, what we're dealing with, including the great state of West Virginia, many of high school graduates and their families are facing the fact that the pandemic has just changed their whole view of life. And so what are we doing here at Pierpont to help respond to those needs? One of the things I want to make mention of is a project that we're involved in. We're partnering with NACCE, and NACCE is the National Association of Community College Entrepreneurship. But what we're doing is we're partnering with NACCE with what's called an ESTEAM project. And the whole idea behind this ESTEAM project is to infuse entrepreneurship into the region's STEM initiatives to graduate a workforce of entrepreneurially minded students poised to recognize and create solutions to gaps within the local community. Because if you think about now, the mindset has to be a little bit different from people in school now. Not like when me or most of you all were in school. Well, you start out you have a particular major and you go down that track. Well, things are changing so darn fast. We have to be able to think entrepreneurially and be able to make adjustments on the flash. Well, that's the beauty of community colleges. That's how we are created. We are designed for moments like this. I'm not saying, it's a good thing that we're going through a pandemic. No, I'm saying community colleges are designed specifically to make those adjustments and to turn on a dime to address the needs of the community. So I'm interested in know what your needs are and understand what those barriers are, because collectively we can work together to help you address those needs and address the needs of the local community. And this project that I just mentioned to you is a two-year project that we're hoping to reach 7 Appalachian states and across 75 rural schools. So I'm very, very proud of that project. And community college, if you think about it, community colleges like Pierpont are needed more now than ever before. If you really think about that. Yeah, I'm not saying that universities are not needed. I'm saying community colleges are needed more so than ever before. Community colleges play a critical role in supporting local businesses and the regional economy, and must collaborate with industry as well as other stakeholders in the local educational environment to best serve the needs of their communities. That's what we do. That's how we're designed. So again, I'm thrilled to be here today. I am thrilled to be here today to mainly listen to you all and to see what I can do as a college president within the state to help address the needs, because we're all in this together. So again, thank each and every one of you for being here, and thank you all for inviting me to participate in today's discussions.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. And yes, you educate us on some things, and we will definitely educate you on that it's okay to harvest trees. You'll learn that today, if nothing else, or you won't be allowed to leave the room. All right. Next, we continue our discussion about community college systems throughout our Appalachian region. We're very pleased we have West Virginia represented here in the room, but we've also got Dabney Lancaster Community College joining us by Zoom. Many of you probably in Southwest Virginia as well are familiar with that college. You probably use them in some of your logger training programs or maybe some of your workforce development. So we're very excited about a program that's already in place there that we hope to duplicate in some of our other colleges around the system. So joining us this morning is Scott Regal. Scott's the program director there at the college, and he's going to share, he has a video to share with us first, and then he's got some remarks he's going to make afterwards. And then Dr. Moore will come back up and he will facilitate a discussion with you guys. So Dabney Lancaster.
Good morning, everyone. Man, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the Appalachian Hardwood Group because I am Appalachia, man. I tell you, there's nothing better when you get that in your blood. I'm a West Virginia guy, born and raised, and man, when you get the mountains and the hardwoods in your blood, you really it's hard to get rid of. So I want to appreciate the opportunity that Tom and Dave reached out to us. I want to speak on Dabney S. Lancaster, the community college, and I appreciate Jen and Dr. Moore leading us into that. But I also want you guys to understand that if you're in West Virginia, if you're in Virginia, if you're in North Carolina, Tennessee, you have one of us there somewhere. And so ideally you're connected with us, but the support that we pull in the community college sector from industry is without a doubt an open door policy. So I want to lead into that, that conversation, and then how we deal with our training regiment. Tom, teachers and preachers like to talk a lot. So whenever I see you stand up, I'll know my time is up. But the DSLCC forestry program in Clifton Forge, in Covington, is set there. We were established there in 1969. Actually, the president was scrutinized significantly by the idea that why do you need a forestry program? And 50 plus years later, we have really understood that the need is even greater today. And so that need of training field-ready foresters, of getting field-ready graduates to the industry is even more important. And you guys sitting in the audience today realize that, because you've had such struggles over these last 2 or 3 or 4, maybe even 5 years of trying to have high-quality employees that stay with you long-term. And so that community college regiment, that training regiment of the hands-on experience is extremely important in allowing us as a higher institution, a training institution, to train graduates for your business that you are confident they will enter, they will be able to take off running, and the quality of their work and their professional work ethic will, without a doubt, make them a great investment for your operation. So I want to talk a little bit about that, about our regiment here. As you saw in the video, we are a Society of American Foresters accredited 2-year Associates in Applied Sciences Forest Management Technology degree. We are the only one in Virginia, and we are only one of, I do believe, and it changes, 27, sometimes between 24 and 27 in the United States. Okay. Why is that important? That is important because our regiment is accredited, and we are obligated under the accreditation to provide the training experience that the Society of American Foresters deems important as a professional agency, right? And so those training regiments and courses have to be met. Our graduates have to be able to understand those and produce those proficiently. That then gives you guys confidence that when you hire a 2-year degree graduate, that you are actually hiring a graduate that has proved themselves in the classroom, and they're going to be able and willing and interested in dedicating that same skill set into the woods, into your log yards, into the green chain ends, into the saw cabs, irregardless of where you want them in your operation, okay? The demand for that graduate is high. And unfortunately, we are not able to meet that demand because of recruiting. And I say that because I want to have this open discussion with everybody. And I popped in at the right time to hear the conversation about the drug, the opioid support and everything. And of course, Jen's working really hard on the community college side to get more emphasis and interest into investing in the community colleges on the governmental side. But why I say that is recruiting is tough, and you guys understand that. We're dealing in a generation, and we can talk about this all we want. If you're born after 1981, you're either a millennial, or if you're born after, I think, 1997, it depends on what the line is, you're called Generation Z. You are not as you are tied into technology significantly, but maybe the outdoors hasn't been so much into your daily list of fun things to do. What does that mean for us? That means that we are definitely hitting a wall of trying to educate the youth, trying to get the youth outdoors, trying to get them to understand that as Generation Z, your anxiety and depression levels high. 41%, Pew Industry says 41% of Generation Z are in full-time employment, and the others consider full-time employment as part of a gig, a rotation. They don't stay long. They like to move around. Okay, so we're dealing with a generation that is showing itself into the workforce, that we have some hurdles that we have to overcome. But as industry professionals, as a conglomerate partnership of everybody, it's our job to not only train them with skill sets, but catch them early enough, get them outdoors early enough, support Future Farmers of America, support 4-H groups, support the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts. Be able to give opportunities as professionals for internships, that we can ultimately get those youth attached to hunting and fishing and outdoor recreation, that then gets them more invested in the understanding of what the outdoors gives us and our mountains gives us the support that we can understand that cutting trees is okay. And we'll educate Dr. Moore on that a little bit. It's always funny when we hear that. And so then we get those folks that are ultimately wanting to pursue a career in the environmental world, and then entering an institution for training, and then ultimately going on to be able to supply workforce for the industry. So I encourage you guys with that, just that general support of the community college system and the education and the outdoor recreation and the outdoor environment and utilities sectors and all these demands that need these workforce, just to invest in those youth professional groups. Take your children and your grandchildren camping, get them involved. But here at Dabney, we do a lot of industry support. We are blessed to be 50 years, and it's only because of our industry support that we are that way. From that video, you saw some of our lab experiences. Our students get out in the field. We have a great relationship with Blue Ridge Lumber Company, and Tom Sheets does a fabulous job with us in the spring in a forest products lecture, a field tour where we go through a lot of Blue Ridge's operations. We do a lot in measurements class at their Callahan yard, where they allow us to go over there and scale logs. So we get that establishment of log scaling before we go into measuring trees. We've been blessed to have a great relationship with the National Hardwood Lumber Association and doing the hardwood lumber grading short courses. We've tried to stimulate more interest in that, and so we ask that we get some involvement out of professional groups and industry to send employees to us to train them for that. We've done a lot of work with our CDL program. We have a workforce development CDL program here that is just overflowing. The trucking industry is just as, I guess, suffering as everybody else and having dedicated employees. So the community college not only provides credit side, but a significant workforce side, where the CDL program for us is under the workforce side. So we encourage our forestry students to go ahead and take their time and get the CDL degrees. We do a lot of professional certifications. We do the pesticide applicator license. We do the federal soil certifications, the S212 series. We do a lot of the ISA and urban world. The goal is at a community college, and Dr. Moore and Jen have both alluded to this, and you guys may be graduates of a community college, is we have the ability to take our small group, train them in the hands, on the equipment, go anywhere we want to go. You know, if we have something and we have a great lab in North Carolina, man, we load up and say, hey guys, we're loading up, guys and gals, because I just use the term. I'm a country guy, so I just use guys. And load up the van on a Friday morning, and we head to North Carolina, and we stay the night, and we come back, and we learn pine forestry or, chip and saw operations or biomass operations or whatever in the pine country. We do the same thing with Weyerhaeuser, where we load up and come over into West Virginia and the Weyerhaeuser properties and look at silviculture in a hardwood setting and all of their stuff. That is what the training regimen is in a community college. And let's be honest, I'm a bachelor's degree student, graduate, 2 bachelors. In fact, I thought 1 was not enough, so I decided to grab 2 out of WVU. And I still am learning, and I wish I would have went the 2-year college route and got that hands-on experience. And then if I chose to get a bachelor's, I could. But our graduates are in high demand, and they're making $45,000 straight out of a 2-year degree. And so the need for them to go on to get a bachelor's is not as important in today's world as it used to be, though we encourage it. So with that being said, please invest in your community colleges. Please understand that it is not a lesser degree. In fact, it is the best degree. And I'll argue our students will compete without a doubt, and we do it on a daily basis with Virginia Tech students. We have a great relationship with them, but we compete a lot with them as far as skill sets, and they are very impressed with us, and they've actually allowed us to get back into their program. Okay, so thank you for allowing me to be part of this Appalachian Hardwood conversation, allowing Dabney S. Lancaster to just exhibit a little bit of what the community college can do for you guys. I would say if you do have an opportunity and you're kind of frustrated with your employment workforce or out of the graduates that you've been getting, please contact the institution, please contact us, let them know what you need, be able to speak as a partnership and find the asset to be for you, not against you. The higher education is for you. It's not so much that it's against you. Invest in that, invest in the youth, and let's all work together to get this Generation Z, whichever one we're going to deal with, outdoors and appreciation for the outdoors, because we've got a lot against us on that side. Okay. I think I'm okay, Tom. Did I go over?
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. So we want to open it up now. Dr. Moore is going to come back and lead a discussion for us because, guys, one of the things we've learned over the last several weeks and months, actually, talking with ARC, talking with some of these community college leaders like Scott and Jen, is that we as an industry may not be taking full advantage of the community colleges that are right in our backyards and taking some of these training programs and using them for our workers. So Dr. Moore is going to lead a discussion about that. We're going to keep Scott engaged here as well if you have a particular question of him. Jen is still on as well, so if you have a question that you'd like to ask of her, or also the third part of this, if you have particular issues at your place, we've got some community college leaders that we want to hear that they can think about the programs they're engaged in moving forwards. And most importantly, we want ARC to hear that. So as we're working with them to develop, either to take some existing programs and expand them, or to develop new things to help you attract and retain workers. The one request we have here this morning, we got microphones here. Wendy's going to pick up one of the mics and work that side of the room. I've got a mic over here because we want everyone to hear your questions or your comments, both in the room, but also online. So, Dr. Moore?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Can I use this and talk?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Now, before I open the floor up for questions from you, I have to say this. And because I made the statement that, it was my understanding cutting trees were down. Now, it was bad. The thing I want to add to that and say that I thought that I was doing the eco-friendly thing. I thought, that, buying these other products and I was saving the trees. That's what I thought. I did not know and did not realize, the cost that it goes in and the damage that it does as it relates to the environment. All of those, the waste. I mean, I didn't think about all of that. So I'm so pleased to be here today. So Tom and Dave, again, thanks for allowing me to be here. But I want to clarify that because I don't want you guys to leave here thinking, man, he's an idiot. He's a president? No. No. And at this point, what I'd like to do is open up the floor and hear from you. What are some of your top workforce issues for you? What are some of the top workforce issues that you have. Because remember, part of our role, especially in the community college, part of the mission is to provide direct access to the workforce, to respond to the needs of the workforce. So what are some of the issues from your perspective?
Good morning. We have some planers and rip saws and other lumber process and handling equipment, and we find out we have a difficulty with students who can't do fractions. They can't add and subtract, multiply and divide fractions, and they can't read a tape measure. Every chance I get to talk to an educator, I like to encourage them to give some basic math. That's all they need to know is some basic math, you know, to make sure they can read a tape measure and a ruler in the job site. So I don't know what, you know, if you guys.
Well, you know, in fact, it's interesting you say fractions and stuff. By trade, my background ends in mathematics. And so it's like, why can't, and I used to think, well, why can't you do fractions? Anybody can do it. No, but you're right. That is a trend that we're seeing a lot more of. And that's, you know, some of the things that we're trying to address at our particular community colleges is we, in the state of West Virginia, what we've done is, because what happens a lot of time in colleges, you know, you have students that come in at a certain level and they put them in developmental ed and they stay there and they eventually drop out. So one of the things that we're doing to address that is we have what's called a co-requisite model in mathematics. So it gives students, because we have a number of students that come to us who've been, say, out of school for 10 years and they're coming in. And obviously they're going to be a little bit weak and have forgotten some of the skills. So what we do is we have real-time remedial help to provide them that access. Scott, are you still on? I don't know whether or not you want to address that a little bit.
Yeah, Dr. Moore, I appreciate the opportunity to that. And I appreciate his, the question there. I apologize, I didn't get his name. I did see the Greenbrier shirt, so he's a local boy for me. The community college does, we have a problem, and let's just say what it is, and Dr. Moore mentioned it. Sometimes our skill sets are not coming out of the high school where they need to be, and so we ultimately end up with a lot of a developmental period of getting that student acquainted with the next phase in their life, which would be the college series phase. I agree 100% with you, and we do that in our program of being able to understand, you know, just basic components and being able to use the basic tools, because we can't jump to the technology components if you don't understand their foundation. So I understand completely where you're at, and we try to at least understand on the forestry side those tools and those skill sets. As a community college, though, we spend a lot of time getting a student prepped for in their math components, getting them prepped on their writing skill sets. We spend our students a lot of time in the writing center. Even simple things as, and I don't mean simple because I'm not a very good one, spellers, because we are technology based and everything has auto-correct spelling to it. Simple spelling components, and you'd be surprised about the limitations that you face. So I hear you loud and clear. We do have things involved that we are working with that, and we'll do everything we can on our side to make sure they understand those.
And to add on, some of the other things I mentioned real briefly earlier is that we're partnering up, you know, with NACCE, and we're trying to go out specifically and work with middle schools, high schools early on to try and align the curriculum. Because you're right, because part of our role is to provide you all with students that are ready. You shouldn't, in your place of employment, shouldn't have to be teaching students fractions. That's our role. Well, and it's not appropriate for us to say, well, the high schools are not doing it. Well, shouldn't we then work with the high schools? Because we all want the students to be able to have the skill sets. And so those are some of the initiatives that we're trying to put forth. And I think a lot of the schools across the country are trying to do the same thing. It's a problem. It really is. Any other, anybody else want to share some things?
Don't really have a question, but I've just saw the campus of Dabney S. Lancaster. It brings back old memories. He said they started in 1969. I graduated from there in 1972.
A few years ago.
Yeah, and I'm about ready to finish my 46 years of making railroad ties, so the retention program must work.
Hey, Hey, that's great. Hey, listen, we tried to do an alumni banquet last year and COVID shut us down. So you give me your information. We're trying. It looks like we may be shut down again this year, but we're having an alumni reunion. So that's awesome.
Anyone else would like to share some of the issues that we could, help along the way?
Yeah, I think one of the points made earlier about, it showed on the slides there about going to mills and going to hands-on training. A lot of people we're getting in now, they, besides not having a work ethic, that they don't show up on time, don't work every day, and they don't know how to turn a light switch on. But doing the hands-on training and exposure to that, that by the time they get out, 2 years of that, they know what they're getting into, but also that they want to be involved with the process. And I think that's just a very critical thing to have hands-on training and exposure to the industry prior to they getting in the workforce.
Yeah, and I think it's important for us as educators to, if you be around me for about 5 minutes, you'll learn that I'm a big sports person, big sports guy. I played basketball. In fact, at one time, I thought I was going to be, I played against Scottie Pippen and all those guys, and I thought I was going to grow. Scottie grew to because we were about the same height coming out of school in Arkansas. And he grew to 6'7". He was a year ahead of me, and I was thinking I was going to grow to 6'7", but I didn't. I'm only 5'10". But I make a lot of analogies to sports, and the reason I bring that, and I think it's important for us as educators to do that too. So you think about some of the blue blood basketball programs like Duke and North Carolina, Kentucky, all those schools. They can tell you right now, 5 years from now, what that graduating class is going to look like. They've done their scouting. And of course you have basketball camps and all those things to provide students, so when they graduate, they're ready. So what are we doing in higher education? Or why aren't we, and that's why we're involved in these initiatives, why don't we get more hands-on and preparing those students before they graduate? Because we think about what we just talked about. We said students are coming out and they don't have the fractions, they don't have the skill set to do those things. Well, the onus has to be on us to work with our local high schools, middle school even, in providing opportunities for students to figure out and get the skills that they need as they move on. So when they graduate, so when they come to you all, they have those skill sets. So we gotta retool ourselves and re-engineer how we're providing the education to our students. And I think that's gonna help. And those are the things we're beginning to do, taking the lead on what we know that works via sports. People just don't up and become good their senior year, where it's a process. And we have to do have that same mentality and mindset as it relates to academics as well. Any other concerns, issues?
Dr. Moore, can I speak just on that?
Yes, sir.
And that's that's exactly what a lot of the community college training regiments are about. It's that hands-on, prove yourself in the 2 years, and we kind of sell it as you have a 2-year job interview.
Right.
And then ultimately what it does is it doesn't shock them. So if they fail in the 2-year degree, or they find the spot that they don't like, then it's not that they find that in their training process. They don't find that at your employment operation. And a lot of times in the forest industry, they came into it because they like to hunt and fish. And I've had a consulting firm, and I employed a lot of these, that they really had their first experience when they went to the workforce about getting into the woods. I like to hunt and fish, but I hunt and fish when I want to, and the weather's good, and whenever I have the time. I don't work 5 days a week in the industry and feel all the bad stuff and feel all the good stuff and the heat and the bugs. I learned that in the 2-year degree. That way I know this is what I should expect, and I love it and I appreciate it. That way I am going to be at your operation, and I'm dedicated to that. So I appreciate that comment.
Yeah, I'm with the Kentucky Forest Industries Association, so I get out and see a lot of our members. And I guess a couple of comments. Years ago, before I was with the association, I actually worked in Eastern Kentucky at Morehead State University on an ARC-funded grant for 3 years, working with the wood industry in Eastern Kentucky. And it was to develop the industry and a number of things. But this is a great thing because the important thing is to listen to the industry. That grant was approved, and I probably spent a year changing how the grant, because the industry, it was something that didn't really fit what they needed, but we made it work and moved it in the direction to, you know, expand other industry rather than grow sawmills. So, getting that input and making sure you're up on that is a really good thing. And the other thing that I see out in the industry is the 2-year programs, community college, they're doing some things in Kentucky are wonderful and help. But the guys I visit, they need somebody that can even stack lumber and count the boards or count the staves, real basic, run a loader, those basic things. So we're working some with Alabama. They have a Forestry Works program that they've put a lot of money into. I know Tennessee's adopted somebody to work with it, and they have anything from a 10-week loader operator, all types of certificate type things. So I think any way to work that in the community college thing would be great, because it's just basic employees that don't have skills. A lot of those will probably never get a 2-year degree, but certainly if they could learn to run a loader, they could find a job easy, just like NHLA, lumber grading, all those things. It's in any way to tie that to community college is great. That's what, and we've talked to Alabama, they have that all in place and would share that with anybody as far as the program and how to do that. That's what they're hoping to do. So, I encourage you to look at those programs to get those basic employment people out there. That's a real need in the industry.
Right. Scott,
thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Scott, you have anything on that one?
Yeah, I wonder a couple things. We work some with the prisons and a variety of things, and boys' homes and other stuff like that. But I wonder, and this is a conversation for the room, I wonder if this could be an incentive out of the opioid budget that would be part of their training obligation, maybe, that they would have develop a skill set. We have the equipment. It's nothing for us to put it together. We have the equipment. We do that. We could do it over the summer, do that. The hurdle would be maybe you as the employer, quote unquote, or the sponsor for the individual would help pay for a tuition rate for that. And we're not talking much, right? Community colleges aren't that expensive for the opportunity to do that short-term training. But how would we work? I'm just trying to think out loud as a room, and I would be curious to see Alabama's set up on that. How would we work the incentive to recruit that, to pay for that, and then what would it be? Would you sponsor that individual and then ultimately give them an employment afterwards that would develop that skill set? But we have all the equipment to do that. I think it's a great idea.
Right. Is Jen still on?
She actually had to step out. She had another obligation. She said at 9:50.
All right. Okay.
I will say that one of the things that's why we put this together this morning, guys, was to talk about these issues that are going on in the workplace, but also talk about what's going on at the college level and also in other states, because Bob makes a great point about a particular program that a state has taken on. I know in North Carolina and in West Virginia and in Pennsylvania, there are logger training programs that are short-term classes that allow a logger or some logging employees to get 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks of training and a certificate where they're on the job site. We are very interested in expanding that into more industry positions where they are learning equipment at the sawmill, how to operate. You saw, a saw running there, you saw a resaw running there. So how to operate those types of equipment in a certification type setting where they come away and they're certified in that particular area. And I know that HMA is partnered with a university in Wisconsin for again, it's a certificate. They come out of that program and they are trained in some mill opportunities. So putting these things together and putting these opportunities together so you know about what these are and you can take advantage of these things. Yes, they are going to come with cost. I think Scott makes a great point that there's some tuition or other costs that need to come along with that. But are there grant opportunities available from ARC if we package some of these things together and develop a program to where you know more about it, but then you can participate in it? I think hopefully there's some opportunity there also.
There are some opportunities like that, because it brings to mind that we had a program you mentioned about certificates. We have an aviation program, I think one of the top programs in the country. And we were able to get an ARC grant along with a federal grant as well. And it was able to train, because in the state of West Virginia, as you all know, and especially the southern part of the state, when the mining industry, I mean, just the bottom came out. And so you had a huge unemployment rates down there. And so we partnered with our local companies. We partnered with ARC. We partnered with the federal government, got a power grant, and we were able to provide, I think it's like it's a 8-week program where it bring folks into the field, you know, at the ground level, entry level, but it's only an 8-week program. You get a certificate, and it's like stackable credentials. And then once they get that credential, they can actually, because they have to work and take care of their family, and then they can get into the 2-year program if they desire. But they could work with that certificate and make a substantial living there. So I agree with you. There are opportunities. Those are the types of things that we provide in community colleges, because what we're seeing nationally, not just in my school at Pierpont, what we're seeing nationally, a number of students, especially so with, you know, in this global pandemic, is coming back to us, not necessarily wanting a degree because they don't have that time to do it, but they need to be able to secure some sustainable employment. And that's where the certificates, or we call micro-credentialing, comes into play, the short-term certificates. So yes, I agree with, and the reason I wanted to see whether or not Jen's on, because that's something that could be scaled up nationally. So it should be some national funding to allow that to happen. Yes.
So we've discussed hard skills, on-the-job skills. Can either of you address how community colleges are approaching soft skills? Because we've talked about multiple generations and work ethic and timeliness, those soft skills that are all needed, particularly in a production environment. How are community colleges addressing that? Well,
some of the things that we're doing to address those is we're working along with high schools, trying to, as you say, as I said, with sports. You know, think about in sports, if you want students to be skilled at a certain level coming out of high school, well, you have to, I like myself, I played AAU basketball, all of those training things along the way. So when I became, graduating high school, I had the skill set. I was offered a scholarship because I had the skill. Well, that same thing has to happen on the academic side of the house. And that's what we're beginning to do, is to start getting students involved early on. And making sure they understand what it's like to take a college class. And what I know in my particular school, we have dual enrollment classes, and we oftentimes try and not force, but we would encourage the classes to be taken on our campus. And the reason for that is because we want to be able to, the whole ideal of how dual enrollment and all that stuff came about, because you had students that had the knowledge, but we want to provide them with the atmosphere of what college is like. Well, if you provide that class only in the high school setting, not saying they won't get the book, but they want to mimic that environment. So some of the things that we're trying to do is to reach those students early on, to make sure that they're held accountable just as if they were a college student on our college campus, where they have to be on class on time. I mean, all of those sorts of, that's what we're trying to do, working along those lines. Because you're right, there's a real problem with, I have a 16-year-old, and the way he learned, the way I learned was, okay, I'm sitting down in that chair, bright light, but he wants to sit. He has the iPad in this hand, he has the iPhone in this hand, the earbud, I mean, all of that sort of stuff. And so you're right, that's a problem. Because I think Scott had mentioned early on, you have what's called this Z generation, and they learn differently. And what we have to do as educators is to actually teach differently. And so that's the other thing that we're doing as well. We're looking at different ways of how do we reach those students? How do we teach to them a little bit differently, but holding them accountable? Scott, you want to add any onto that?
Yeah, and I appreciate that comment. And frankly, it is probably the most limiting factor in a good quality graduate. And so why we try to stimulate that or try to eliminate that is we are no nonsense about due dates on assignments.
Yep.
And in fact, it's a due date and time. It's the same thing as turning in that bid opening. You get there at 10 o'clock, you turn it in at 10:01, you're late. You understand? So it's a mentality that you establish, that due dates and times. You show up for class on time. 10 minutes late, you're absent, right? No cell phones in class.
Yep.
And just the yes sirs. And in fact, we are adamant, and if anybody ever does a professional stop with us, a guest stop with us, you may not notice or you may be surprised about it, but we actually prep it beforehand. I make them ask questions. And the reason I make them ask questions is because you are engaged with the individual. That is an intuitive thing. Your ears are working, not your mouth. You ask questions. Second thing is, at the end of the presentation, you shake their hand, look them straight in the eye, and you introduce yourself. And thank you for your time. Those are the soft skills that provide an individual that is both professionally ethic, but also they are invested in their own right and their own success by putting those their values, I guess, in forefront. So we, without a doubt, get off the cell phone. Don't show it. You don't need it in class. The due date and time is the due date and time. Don't give me an excuse, unless we have a medical excuse or a reliable reason. And it's establishing that professional ethic that is so important to anyone's success. Really, let's be honest. If they have that, you can train the other stuff.
Right.
But I agree completely with you that is as important, if not more, than the hard skills.
The other thing that we're emphasizing also is that we're making sure that they come prepared, dressed appropriately. I mean, we shouldn't have to say those type of things, but we do have to say those things because people, especially, I remember, everybody know the setting that we have now with Zoom, we have classes and stuff. And so we had to establish dress code for Zoom for college kids. And but it goes to your point. All of that stuff is important. And so we have to emphasize those sorts of things. Yes, sir.
So a question I have, I come from a university, been in a university for 20 some years, have recruited a number of students from West Virginia, Glenville State, when they have a forest technical program. It's accredited by SAF. Dabney Lancaster has a great cadre of students. You go to Allegheny College out of Maryland, they're really good. Hocking College in Ohio. And we get a lot of forestry students, forest technical students, technicians that are wanting to go and get a bachelor's degree. Great opportunity for us to cherry pick your students. We love it. It's fabulous. Please continue to do that. The one thing we don't see a lot of is in the area of what we, for lack of a better term, wood technology, wood science, where the students learn mill operations. And I saw the sawmill operating there for Dabney Lancaster. I don't know that we've ever recruited anybody that's got a wood tech background from Dabney Lancaster, all forestry. And I'm wondering, is this something that the industry would like to see technical schools start to take on? I know we would like to see it because our wood science program has about 15 students in it. It's ready to die, to be quite frank with you. And once that goes, well, actually, there's only 10 accredited universities in the U.S., actually all over the world, 11, that are currently accredited by the Society of Wood Science and Technology. So what we're seeing is like a complete absence of any technical programs. There was a college, a school in North Carolina that had it. And John Kreitz actually taught there. And that program is now gone. And so I have to ask, is this something that you might be involved with, David, or that we could perhaps be enthusiastically supportive of as an industry to get somebody out there to start looking at this? I mean, it doesn't have to be a big effort, but at least you get people with a focus on math, with a focus on that technology skill that you want in the mill, like the sawmill, other kinds of mills. So this is a question I pose to the group and to the folks at the community colleges and technical schools. And now I gotta let this go. Sorry.
Scott, you have anything on that one?
Yeah, and it's good to see Joe. Actually, Joe, I graduated WU in '99. So you at that time were, I think, department head or dean or something. And in fact, my second degree at WVU, Forest Resources Management and Wood Industries. I went ahead and got the extra 18 hours and took the calculus and stuff, and I got that, and that allowed that basically stump the finished product. And I think there's two comments to that, Joe. Wisconsin has a great program, I believe, and I know that, your sentiment on reduced amount of enrollment in the wood products, wood industries, wood utilization, Virginia Tech calls it biomaterials, a variety of those, is a concern. The value, I think, is ever more in the future because we're going to get more into composites and cross-laminated timbers, and we're starting a lot into this engineered stuff that we've been really dealing in since the 90s, but it's going to become our future, I think, even more. What our concern is, and why we try to do that, Joe, is we go in to get folks in our math departments and really let them understand. I think we've got to educate them early enough that there is a wood industry component. If you want to be an engineer, you like that math, you like the physics parts, you like those things. Did you know that you could work with wood and be an engineer in the wood-based side? Most folks wouldn't even know there is such a thing, right? They would just say OSB's bought in the shelf on Lowe's, and I don't even know what goes into it, And so I think we've got to get to the high schools and get those teachers and those math sides and the physics sides in the high schools to understand that not only in engineering is civil engineering and industrial engineering, but there is an absolute wood manufacturing demand for these type of things. In our side, Joe, to put a wood industry degree, we have the course, but there's a lot more that we probably could do on our side to make it an actual 2-year degree. And I would definitely be open for that. I think it involves a different facility structure, some more equipment, some other stuff. I enjoy the heck out of talking about wood physics and wood mechanics and elasticities and ruptures, and the students get all excited about it, but we really have the time to put it in one course.
All right, Dr. Morrison, we can stay on schedule. We'll do one more. Last one.
I have a great appreciation for each of you that have talked on the community college level and what you're doing to educate people. But I think it's important for the fellow from the Appalachian group and from any economic development group that works in this area. This industry is being handicapped by the lack of, and I'm going to use the term, unskilled labor. People who come to work every day and stack lumber, put pieces of wood through a molder, run a chop saw, run a rip saw, and do the things that this industry needs that are labor intensive. I don't think we suffer from a huge lack of skilled people, and y'all have done a fine job of educating skilled people to come into the workforce. But the efforts for the government agencies and stuff need to be on putting people to work, not creating jobs. We have jobs. What we don't have is a workforce. I sell to people all across the country, not just in Appalachia, who could produce more, who could create more sales. We could create more sales, but the people are not there to come to work every day and are not willing to come to work every day. It is everybody that I sell to that runs a business that says, I get 10 applicants, 5 can't pass the drug test. I get 5 that pass the drug test, 2 don't show up on their first day of work. The 3 that do come, one of those leaves sometime during the first day, and the other 2 I might keep for a while. We have a real problem with that in our industry. And I think any government-funded programs that are out there that are developing workplaces need to focus not just on these skilled positions, but there is a need, and there will always be a need for people to show up every day on time and do these things. The amount of cost that adds to our operations to have to run short of people who don't show up every day, to hire extra people to cover those who don't show up every day, and the lack of sales that generates not only at the sawmill level, but at the secondary manufacturing level, that is crippling our industry. And that is what needs, in my opinion, to be addressed. I don't mean to take anything away from the community college and the teaching of skills, because we always will need skilled people. But any programs to develop the economy in Appalachia have to start, and your work on the drug scourge, I will use the word, is extremely important. But we need people to come to work. And until we do something with that, we cannot have any sustained economic growth in Appalachia or in our industry. And that, I think, is anybody in here who runs a manufacturing operations will raise their hand and say, that's the issue. And I want you to hear that while you're here. Not just, hey, it would be nice if we had these skilled things. We need day-to-day labor, period.
Thank you, Dean. Dr. Moore, any?
I just want to thank you all for allowing me to come in and hear the concerns and to educate me more about a wonderful industry. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for inviting me. Really appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all for your input there as well. We are recording this session, and we're also going to use this to develop some guidelines and some ideas, suggestions that we'll give to ARC, and then we'll talk about with other community colleges. So thank you for your input. That was excellent.